welcome to episode 125 of Popcorn and Prosecco, a show that's all about talking about movies. I am Perri Nemiroff, and here are my co-hosts, Kristy Puchko and Angie Han.
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
All right, so we've got a different episode for you today. First up, we are going to do our formal review of Jason Bourne, the new Bourne movie, obviously, and then we are going to finish up by highlighting some of our favorite things from Comic-Con 2016. So, first up, Bourne. I did not see that one. Who is hosting it?
I am.
Cool.
Yay!
Perri's the luckiest one this week.
This is the most upbeat that this review is going to get, so strap in. Okay, the most dangerous former operative of the CIA is drawn out of hiding to uncover hidden truths about his past. Same plot as every Bourne movie. He's still searching for answers about his past, none of which will make him happy because there's a hole in his heart that can't be filled.
Because they killed Frank Aponte, okay? Whatever. I'm still mad about the second movie. Moving on. Go ahead.
All right, so, I have seen all the Bourne movies, but I remember very little about them, much like Jason Bourne himself. And so I went into this one being like, I hope I don't have to know anything. And it turns out you don't. So this is, okay. The first thing I said as soon as this movie was over, I saw it with Kristy, and I turned to Kristy and I said, Kristy, have the Bourne movies always been this boring? Because the problem is that, so it's Matt Damon again. They brought back Paul Greengrass. So it does feel like a Bourne movie, except it's really kind of a slog in a way that I don't remember the past ones being so dull. And I think a lot of it has to do with the script is terrible.
It's shockingly lifeless, this movie. Well, also, a friend of ours, Jason Bailey, pointed out Tony Gilroy had nothing to do with this script, and he wrote or co-wrote all the other ones. And they didn't bring him back.
The script for this one, it doesn't feel like they were working off of a real script. It feels like they're working off of a script outline. So if, for example, one of the themes that this movie wants to push is privacy is freedom. So how do they do that? They just literally have a character say, guys, privacy is freedom, or stuff like that.
People talk in agendas a lot. They're like, well, I thought you were a patriot, and do you want to be loyal or do you not? And it's like, people speak in such blatant agendas that it's insulting to the audience, the same way that a lot of the exposition is delivered through people reading files.
Can we talk about the fact that at one point a character retrieves a USB drive that is encrypted, and do you know how we know it's encrypted? Because it says the word encrypted in
on the
giant
fucking thumb drive.
white letters on the drive.
There's actually a part in this where Jason Bourne wants to know if he can trust somebody, so he Googles their name, an article about them comes up, and there's a part where it's key to understanding their character that he actually pinches his iPhone and expands on so that you can really focus on the key words of this sentence. And it was just this movie treats the audience like they've just had a serious brain injury and need everything explained to them repeatedly, very slowly. It's
just like how we see the same flashback 18 different times.
And it's the first time you see the flashback, you should be able to understand what the final reveal of that flashback is going to be, but no. They keep showing it to you. And the other crazy thing is that the characters in this, they have an amazing cast. They have Tommy Lee Jones, they have Matt Damon, Alicia Vikander, who just won a goddamn Oscar, Vincent Cassel.
Yeah.
Amazing. They have an amazing cast. And they are giving nothing to fucking do. Alicia Vikander is going to be, she just won for The Danish Girl, so you know she can do drama. She's going to be the next Lara Croft. She gets one action scene where her action is actually off screen. And then, Tommy Lee Jones, he looks so bored to be in this movie.
He looks almost as bored as we felt watching it.
More so. He actually just looks like he just doesn't want to be on this planet anymore. He looks like he's given up on life. He just seems so fucking depressed. There's he got laughs at one point because someone asks his character what he thinks, and he's basically says something like, whatever, and everybody in the theater started laughing because it's just it's the most authentic moment in the movie where you're just yeah, Tommy Lee Jones don't give a shit. And then Vincent Cassel is an amazing actor. He's a French actor who is beautiful in Black Swan and scary and sexy, and he plays a character called The Asset. He is a hitman who never gets a name, whose motivation is fucking so obvious that it's just insulting.
It's not even that his motivation is obvious. He literally spells out what his motivation is.
3 times.
And basically they want the asset, which is the laziest nickname ever. I remember Clive Owen was called the professor in the first one, which I only remember because someone reminded me today. But anyway, so I get that they have nicknames, but the asset is just they couldn't come up with anything.
Again, it feels like a placeholder. So much of this movie feels like, that line's not good, but we'll fix it later. That character has no dimension whatsoever, but we'll fix it later. And And then, oh god, and then the action's so bad. The action is so bad. So much of this movie is literally out of focus. Where, like, there's all these whip pans and there's all this handheld, where so much of the action you can't see. What's crazy is that the one shot that they keep using in the trailer is of Jason Bourne punching out a guy in a bare knuckle boxing type fight. But the funny thing is that shot's not even in the movie. My husband pointed that out, and he's totally right, because the shot they use in the movie is actually an over-the-shoulder shot, so you don't even actually see Jason Bourne connect to the guy's face. You just see Jason Bourne's like shoulders, and then the guy goes down.
Well, it just kind of feels like there's no, like, this really felt to me, I kind of had the same reaction to Jason Bourne that I did to Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit. It's a completely different movie despite the very generic similar names. Which is that it's kind of like, if you've ever seen a CIA thriller before, then you've seen this fucking movie. Like, there's so little about this that makes it unique. It's shocking to me. Like, after seeing this, I'm just like, why did we want another Jason Bourne again? Like,
it's really weird to me that it sounds like this movie is just so incredibly incompetent, and they just really had that quote making the rounds where they were saying, oh, like, we'll take as many Bourne movies as we could possibly get out of them. I mean, it doesn't really sound like it's going anywhere.
I mean, and that's the other problem, is that this movie is all about Jason Bourne, quote-unquote, learning about his past, but him learning about his past, I mean, I guess spoilers, doesn't change anything. Like,
no,
he has no arc in this movie. He's like, I want to learn about my father. He learns about his father, and it doesn't change his circumstances one fucking iota.
It's kind of like how in the last trilogy, like, he's like, I need to learn about my past, and he learned his name, and it's like, okay, what does that change? Now you have a different name, which he still goes by Jason Bourne anyway, so it doesn't fucking matter. But the other thing is, like, this movie thinks that it is saying things about the way we live today. It throws the word Snowden around a couple times. To make
oh my god, there's so many times where someone keeps comparing it, like, well, it's not as bad as Snowden.
Which is kind of funny because there's a movie coming out called Snowden, so it almost seems like the movie is trying to be like, we're better than that movie, and I know that that's not what was intended, but it comes across that way.
No, I absolutely laughed at that because, like, Snowden was at Comic-Con. Like, I keep saying that, and people were like, really? And I was like, yeah, he was in cosplay. The movie Snowden, not the man Snowden, who was afraid to come back to America because of reasons.
The guy that can't come back to America.
I said we should start that rumor that we should be like, oh, by the way, Edward Snowden is totally at Comic-Con, but he's in costume. Can you figure out where he is? But then I was, like, afraid of the FBI, so I didn't do that.
Well, they're listening right now, because if there's anything I've learned from Jason Bourne and Edward Snowden, it's that they're always listening. Anyway,
well, if there's anything I've learned from Jason Bourne, it's that if you ever need to go on a top secret mission, just go to, like, a tech convention, because all the equipment you need will be available in the freebie swag bowls.
The thing that I find frustrating with this movie is that it thinks...
Perri looks so mad right now, and she didn't even have to watch this movie.
I mean, I knew you got, because like you had told me before we even jumped on this call that both of you did not like this movie. I really didn't expect this kind of reaction. I thought maybe it was just bad. This just sounds like a crap film in every respect.
Yes, it really is.
It's not like the worst movie ever made. It just feels so, like, dispiritingly generic.
I called it the worst movie of the summer because I literally can think of nothing that made me happy in this movie.
Worse than Independence Day Resurgence?
Yeah.
Actually, it's worse because Independence Day Resurgence was kind of, like, crazy in a way that Jason Bourne really isn't. Jason Bourne is really just, like, stupid.
Yeah.
And like it's stupid in the most generic ways possible. There's not that much about this movie that I don't feel like I've seen better. Like even the action, which has kind of been like the main reason I like Jason Bourne, like, you know, it's not very well shot, but also like so much of it is stuff that I'm like, yeah, I saw this in like Mission Impossible or Fast and the Furious like 2 years ago. Like why do I need to
And that's the thing that's so infuriating, because the original Jason Bourne movie totally shook up the way we looked at action movies. It made them completely...
Mostly for worse, because then everyone started doing that, like, chopping everything into bits.
Which is true. But it did made people reconceptualize the way they did James Bond, which was really cool. And it had that amazing car chase scene, and there was, like, a lot of, like, interest in the character. Like, Bourne Identity wasn't just an action movie. It was a really engaging drama because of, like, Jason struggling with, like, I have these powers and I don't know what to do with these powers. And, like, anymore, they've just made him another fucking superhero who has all these abilities. But, like, it's just so much of Matt Damon in this movie is literally staring off in the mid-distance and looking sad. And it's just, I want something more. Matt Damon is a much more charismatic actor than this movie would lead you to believe. So, like, I don't know. I cannot think of a single fucking reason. It's funny because I have family members who have been like messaging me and being like, I read your Bourne review. Is it really that bad? People on Twitter have been messaging me and being like, yeah, but is it really that bad? Yes. Don't spend your money on this. Like, it's just, I'm like insulted at how fucking bad this movie is. It just feels incoherent and incompetent, and I don't understand because I do think Paul Greengrass is talented. I think this cast is amazing, but this is just like, it feels like everybody showed up and just decided, fuck it. So I don't watch this movie. That's all I got to say.
Okay, I didn't hate it as much as Perri, but I really don't feel like there's a good reason to tell anyone to watch this movie.
You hated it enough that you forgot who saw this movie with you.
You saw it with me.
You just said I didn't hate it as much as Perri.
Oh, well, I didn't hate it as much as Perri's going to hate it in the future because I have powers. Yes? Sure. Did I make that work?
I'll buy it.
Perri still hasn't watched Transcendence. Well, like someday she'll have to watch that and this, and then
somehow I managed to get out of the worst of the worst, I guess. But I've already taken enough of a beating this summer, so I think it's pretty fair that I skipped this one.
You haven't gotten around to seeing this. I'm like, we can't delay the episode, so Perri has to watch this.
We need to wrap, but since you brought up Transcendence, I do have to say, like, it's kind of like Independence Day Resurgence, where I'm like, that was a terrible fucking movie, but it was terrible in a way where I was like, oh, you're trying to do something interesting, and you're kind of like crazy. Bourne isn't crazy. It is the most, like, staid, generic, nothing here you haven't seen before, including in all three of the previous Bourne movies. Yeah, just go watch a different CIA thriller, like
It's
Bourne Identity.
Boring. Literally watch any other CIA thriller, you'll be happier.
Watch Bourne Legacy. It's actually better than this one.
I like Identity. But let's move on to something we were excited about. We were all at Comic-Con this week, and Perri's going to introduce that.
Yep, so San Diego Comic-Con 2016 was this past weekend, and you know what that means. Lots of TV, movie panels, all these crazy events, trailer reveals, all that good stuff. All three of us were there. We worked our butts off all weekend, and we're going to quickly highlight some of our favorite things that we did or saw while we were in San Diego, and I am going to go first. My favorite experience of this entire con, and one of my favorite con experiences ever, and I think this was like my fifth or sixth San Diego Comic-Con. It was being there for the big reveal of The Woods being Blair Witch and getting to see the full feature. So, in case you're not aware, Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett's new movie has been called The Woods for pretty much years now. I've seen it on their IMDb page, and I've been asking them about it. And everyone thought it was The Woods. They released a poster. They released a teaser at one point, and they kept selling it as The Woods. Surprise, it wasn't The Woods. It's actually the third Blair Witch movie. And what they did at San Diego Comic-Con was they timed this is one of the most brilliant marketing things I've ever seen. They timed the screening with the online reveal, like with press releases going out and all that stuff. So what happened is online there was an embargo, and basically everyone reported that The Woods was really Blair Witch at once. So you ambushed everyone all at once there. And then for the people who saw the movie, when we went into the screening, there were light boxes that were filled with The Woods posters. There was even a huge standee. I mean, this big lit up thing that said The Woods. All the ushers were wearing black The Woods t-shirts, and then when the lights came on at the end of the movie, they all had red Blair Witch t-shirts. And when we went out into the theater, all the posters had been changed. That standee was changed. It's, it sounds like a really silly, insignificant thing, but it
sounds really cool. It sounds like a magic trick.
Oh my God. It felt that way. It was such a nice touch. It was so well done. So
I was very jealous,
I give Lionsgate a lot of credit.
trying to get me to go see The Woods, and you just kept being like, come on, come see The Woods with me. It'll be fun. Come see The Woods. And I was like, I have a panel. It's wrapping up at like 6:30. I'm going to be really exhausted. And I basically just went and got food, and then all of a sudden my phone is blowing up with everyone being like, it's Blair Witch!
Yeah. And I want to just say that, first off, the movie's really good, so that's a big plus. But if you're worried, it's like if you're thinking, oh, that sucks for me that they did the big reveal, now I'm going to go in, and I know it's Blair Witch, and it's not going to mean the same thing to me. That's not the case at all. This isn't a movie that in the third act there's some big twist, and it's the Blair Witch. They say it in one of the first lines of dialogue. It's Heather's brother. That's it. It's out there. This was purely done as a marketing stunt, and I think it was a very well done one, too. And I think it was a smart move on their part. You're still going to enjoy the movie whether you know it's Blair Witch or whether you don't know anything about Blair Witch, because it's just a good found footage movie, period. It's one of those movies that if you are a fan of the 1999 original, really taps into the mythology that they created there, and that feeling of being trapped in the woods. It's got that same scare tactic kind of feel where you're going to be afraid to go in the woods, you're going to be afraid to turn off the lights, but at the same time, obviously they need to build upon the mythology, they need to modernize the cameras, and they do all of that so well without going too far. So I keep calling it Blair Witch 1.5, where they don't go crazy with it, but there are more than enough new elements to make this a worthy sequel. So good job all around. Good job to the filmmakers. Good job to Lionsgate for a brilliant promotional tactic. Comic-Con was the perfect place to do this kind of stunt. So yay, I love that. Who wants to go next?
Well, I'll go next, if that's cool. Because I want to talk about something Perri and I both got to see, which was the first thing I got to do at Comic-Con was to talk to Luc Besson about his new movie, Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. And then Perri and I got to watch some footage, which was really cool. They showed it at the panel. It was very exciting. So Valerian is a comic from the 1960s. It's like a French comic that was like a big deal over there and was actually hugely influential in a lot of science fiction stuff, including Star Wars. So I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting, whatever. And then Luc Besson himself was like, let's watch footage. And the footage is just, it's so exciting. It's just, guys, I can't express enough how cool it looks. Like, this is the guy that did Fifth Element, and I know he's done some weird things over the years, and you're just like, wait, where did this come from? What is this movie? But, like, Valerian is a movie he's wanted to make, he said, since he was 10 years old. And it's basically about, like, time cops traveling around different dimensions, and it all takes place within 24 hours. And it has Claire Delevingne and Dane DeHaan, and I struggle to explain it. I wrote up, like, what the footage we saw was on Comic Book Resources, but, like, there's so much production design and crazy worlds, and, like, the way his brain works, it just feels like an infinite amount of possibilities of what this movie can be, and it made me really excited.
This footage was absolutely bonkers. I never expected it to be this colorful and this crazy. So many creatures, so many cool sci-fi weapons. I mean, you can totally tell that this guy has been thinking about this movie since he was 10, because there's, like, nutso things in this that shouldn't work at all, but it's hard to explain, like, specifically why I found this so appealing, but I think more than anything, it's like this infectious energy about it, You just get caught up in the world and the characters, and you kind of just want to, like, rah-rah them on, and you want to jump into this world and be there. This was probably the thing that I was most pleasantly surprised by at Comic-Con.
Yeah, because I had heard about it, like, a while ago, and then I was kind of, to prepare for the interview, I looked at Luc Besson's Instagram, and if you're at all curious about this movie, he tweeted a photo from the set every day of the shoot, and then when I talked to him about that, he's like, you've seen nothing, and I was like, I have seen literally, like, so many fucking photos, and he's like, nothing, and because of Fifth Element, man, I believe it, because he just, he creates worlds that are so expansive. I'm so excited for Valerian to come out next summer and dive into it, especially because this movie, oh my god, this summer, oh my god, like, at least to 2017 is going to bring us Valerian.
I hope it does well, because I feel like we could really use an imaginative sci-fi epic that's not just, Independence Day Resurgence, Terminator Genesis, like, based on stuff that no one really needs to see return. So I really hope it does well.
I'm hoping it's one of those things. Well, I'm hoping it's one of those things where the promotional campaign keeps getting these types of reactions from press, where even though this is going to be a really tough sell for the average moviegoer, no doubt.
That's what I'm kind of worried about.
I mean, hyping it up.
Let's
and
not
if we keep hyping it up, like, like a Mad Max effect, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
the promo campaign is so good.
I know what we're all thinking is it going to be like Jupiter Ascending, where we get all excited about this original content, and then it's like, what is this movie?
I was thinking more about Scott Pilgrim, which was huge at Comic-Con, and then kind of just...
Yeah.
This isn't nerdy like Scott Pilgrim, though. This is like an adventure movie. It is flat out an adventure movie. And, like, I think Cara Delevingne is a big deal. Yeah, and Dane DeHaan is, like, always on the verge of breaking. I think this could be the thing.
I hope so. I'm sorry to bring it. I didn't mean to bring it on.
No, I think that's a valid question. Because is it going to just be the hype machine? But from what we saw, I'm really excited about it. Okay,
right,
Angie, why don't you tell us what your favorite thing at Comic-Con was?
I would like to weigh in on what my favorite thing was. So I was in I did Hall H.
Yeah,
but
you were a Hall H warrior, holding it down.
I was, but I was in the Marvel panel, and I mean, they've showed, like, Doctor Strange trailer from it, but there's a lot of things that they haven't revealed, and my very favorite thing that I saw there was So Thor Ragnarok has only just started shooting, so they didn't have any footage to show us, and like no one was there because they're all busy shooting and they just started and they're not going to come all the way to San Diego from Australia. But they did send a cute little video that director Taika Waititi did, starring Chris Hemsworth in Thor, and the conceit was like Kevin Feige presented it as like, oh, like Taika Waititi was like thinking about like what was Thor doing during Civil War. So like it's a little short film that shows you exactly what Thor was doing during Civil War. And I don't want to recap the whole thing because it's really fun and I'm not going to do it justice. But basically, I feel like when Taika Waititi signed on for Thor Ragnarok, I was just like, oh my god, like more than anything, what I wish that they would do, but they're not going to do because it's Marvel, is kind of make like a What We Do in the Shadows, but with superheroes. And holy shit, that's exactly what this fucking shit was. Like, the movie won't be like that because obviously it's still going to be a Marvel movie and there has to be like villains and like adventure and like, you know, big CG fights and whatnot. But this was just like that. Like, because it turns to his conceit is that like Thor was just kind of hanging out in Australia, moved in with a roommate, like a normal human roommate, being a dick to his roommate. Like, there's like a cute scene where like his roommate is trying to like vacuum. But, like, you know, Thor has left his hammer lying around and you can't move it, so he's just trying to, like, vacuum around it and stuff. And, like, Thor, like, his coworker at work and he's like, I need to send an email to Iron Man. And, like, just shit like that. Mark Ruffalo shows up at one point. Like, I'm sad that we're not going to get the Taika Waititi directed comedy, like, full-on comedy version of Thor, but I'm very happy that we got this. And I assume and hope that it'll be included in, like, the bonus features at some point so everyone can see it.
Yeah. Yeah, so Comic-Con was amazing. What's funny is that I got to see...
I'm sorry. Especially because, as we just established, Chris Hemsworth is really fucking funny, and the Marvel movies don't take enough advantage of that. So I was just like, yes, please let this turn into, like, please let this end with, like, Thor.
Your excitement just scared me. I'm pretty
Dewey
sure
ran out of the room. He was like, fuck
Dewey
this
heard
noise.
that coming out of my headphones.
I'm sorry. But I'm glad that Taika Waititi.
I love though that they didn't send anybody from that movie to Comic-Con, and Angie walked away being like, I am most excited about Thor now.
The Thor movies have never been my favorite, and I mean, we'll see how the actual movie is, but my sincerest wish is that after they make Thor together, Taika Waititi and Chris Hemsworth will be like, hey, you're pretty funny. Let's make a completely different non-superhero movie together. And that would just be... Yes.
I want that.
Me too.
I love Taika Waititi. His movies are great. And yeah, if you guys are listening to this and for some reason you have not seen What We Do in the Shadows, it is a
Hunt for the Wilder People.
Or Hunt for the Wilder People's out right now. That's terrific. Taika Waititi is a hell of a filmmaker. We're very excited he's doing Marvel stuff because he's so funny. He's got such a unique sense of humor that's like really funny and really smart and subversive and has like a satirical edge, but it's also got this really good heart to it. So yeah, Hunt for the Wilder People and What We Do in the Shadows are amazing, and I'm really excited for Thor Ragnarok.
Me too, which is not...
I didn't get to do the panel. I did the press line, and they were like, no one from Thor is here. I was like, oh.
I never thought I'd be excited for a Thor movie, but here we are. And on that note, we should...
We should. It sounds like Comic-Con was a success. I know I had one of the best Comic-Cons ever.
It was better than Jason Bourne, that's for fucking sure.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's saying something. So, yeah.
I mean, barely.
Well, that's a wrap on episode 125 of Popcorn and Prosecco. You guys know what to do. Go on iTunes and please subscribe there, rate and comment. We also have our website, popcornprosecco.com, our Twitter, Popcorn Prosecco. Please like us on Facebook, and then all three of us are all over the internet as well. Angie, you go first.
Okay, you can find me on Twitter at AJHAN, and I write for slashfilm.com.
Kristy.
I can be found on Twitter at Kristy Puchko. That's KRISTYPUCHKO, and I write all over the web. And you can find my career highlights at decadentcriminals.com, and do look for my Comic-Con content at Comic Book Resources, because, guys, I did so many interviews. There's so much stuff coming.
And you can catch me on Twitter at Nemiroff, Instagram too. I write for Collider.com. You can find all of my Comic-Con coverage on the Collider Videos YouTube channel, and that's about it. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne. Why would he come back now?